Hi, everyone. This is Svava Brooks. I am so happy that you're joining us again for the Journey to the Heart interview series, where we are talking to wonderful experts and professionals that are sharing their passion and unique approach to thriving. I'm very excited to introduce a very special speaker to us here today. Welcome, Derek Rydall.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I know how busy you are, and most of you guys are who are out there making such a big difference in the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But before we go into our questions, I want to tell our audience a little bit about you. They're in for a treat today. So Derek is a part of the new generation of spiritual visionaries and thought leaders. Derek is the author of the #1 Amazon Barnes & Noble bestseller, Emergence: 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, and the world's expert on the revolutionary law of emergence. We're going to learn a lot about emergence today. I'm really excited about that. He has been top executives of Fortune 500 companies in empowered leadership and communication expertise and media professionals on creating conscious and has touched around the planet with this message on finding your path, living your purpose, and making a powerful impact. You can Dick on his weekly podcast, and we're going to talk later. And after this interview, people will be able to see this video. So, well, this is exciting.
Yes, thank you.
And basically, it's we're going to talk about shadow dancing, the sacred path for healing and overcoming trauma. And I have to admit, Derek, just reading the title and some of the questions, I had some internal reaction to this. So just noticing, because I also know the healing path after trauma, I've had to face some of my shadows and the things that I was hiding. So I'm really glad that you're here and that we're going to be talking about this. So
Absolutely.
Can you just explain to our audience, what is our shadow and how is it created?
Yeah, well, the shadow, as we're growing up and we're developing, we have the capacity for all qualities of our being, but then we have experiences, and the experiences tell us that it's safe or not safe to be a certain way. And so we have a pile of everything, and we have an experience, and we say, okay, maybe we're acting very free and we're very open, and then we get either hurt or we get told that we're being weird or we're strange or something. It creates guilt or shame. It creates a sense of fear that part of us isn't safe in this world. And we begin to draw the map of our world where that quality isn't safe. So we repress that quality, let's say weird, strange, whatever, and then we create, and that becomes part of our I am not pile. And then we create a compensatory mask to balance out that energy. So maybe instead of being weird or strange, we create the mask of being normal, being like everyone else. And that becomes in the I am pile. And we go through these step by step until we've sort of separated everything. And we have a pile of I am not and a pile of I am. And the I am not can also be things like creative, beautiful, talented, safe. And the I am pile can be things like, sick, needy, dependent. It can be, so the piles aren't necessarily positive and negative in the way you think. They're just, we separate all these qualities. And the I am becomes our ego, our identity, our personality construct. And the I am not becomes our shadow. Now, the I am not doesn't go away. Energy is not destroyed. It still is very active in our consciousness, very active in our field, but it gets projected. So it gets projected onto the screen of our experience as the people that push us or pull us, the people that push our buttons or the people that pull us, that we feel attracted to. And also it shows up as, situations and things where we will suddenly, have a moment of, breaking out. So if we had repressed our selfish shadow, we might have a moment where we become, every once in a while, when we're really under stress, we become strangely selfish. We become, it just breaks out, that energy. And then we feel incredible guilt or shame, and we push it back down again. And we work really, really hard to try to compensate by being a good boy, a good girl, more generous, more giving, etc. And on we go. And meanwhile, there's this whole part of us that's repressed, that's not expressed, and that is showing up as our relationships, the people that we're struggling with, our boss, our employers, our employees, our family, our partner, or just the people in the world that push our buttons in some way. And then we try to change other people. We try to change, our partner, our children, our whoever, thinking if we could just get them to be different, we'll feel better, we'll feel safer. But what we're really doing is using them as a proxy for a part of ourself that we need to look at, understand, really listen to, and finally embrace and integrate back into our life again. And again, the shadow is both those things that push our buttons. So that's the person that irritates us, drives us crazy, bugs us, makes us feel bad. And that's the dark shadow. And then the light shadow, which is the people that really, we think they're so amazing. And especially those people that we are overly admiring of, or, starstruck by. The whole star system is really built on the light shadow. It's a projection of our unintegrated power. So that's what's happening. We're projecting these parts of us, and then we're trying to manipulate our conditions to not feel what we're feeling. But ultimately, we have to look back at ourselves and integrate it.
Wow, I mean, that's a lot. I'm going to re-listen to this and take better notes next time. But this was powerful, and I like what you said. It's like, it's not good or bad. It just is. These are just categories, right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
and it's our shadow that creates it. And I can relate. I mean, most challenges relationship in my life are the ones that push all my buttons. My closest family, of course, they know, no matter how hard I work to hide that play button, they know exactly where it is.
Yes.
And learning to see that my job is not to respond to whatever is happening in that moment. And so how does that affect us? I mean, it's pretty intense. I mean, both the light and the dark. How do we get clear and bring it into the light? I mean, how does it's clearly showing up in all areas of our lives?
Yeah, well, in our most intimate relationships, like our husband, our wife, our partner, our children, our mom, our dad, our siblings, or even like our boss or our closest friends or employer, colleagues, we begin to shadow dance, which means that we are in relationship with that unintegrated part of our shadow, that unintegrated part of ourselves. And by acknowledging and recognizing that whatever pushes us, we can, start with the pushing, because that's the most common people are aware of, the parts of us that push our buttons. By starting with that area where we're most agitated or irritated or pointing the finger, blaming, etc., we can go within and begin to embrace that quality within ourselves. So, if we're feeling completely, like somebody is so controlling in our life, let's say, and we, what that usually means, if it's pushing our button, is that we've repressed the controller within ourselves. And if we look back at our own life story, we'll find that somewhere in our early childhood, there was somebody that was over controlling, or when we were controlling, we got shamed or punished in some way. So we repressed the controller part of us, and we took on the mask of being more carefree, more spontaneous, more loosely structured. And we embrace that part of ourselves and began to live a life like that and develop certain capacities to go with the flow. Maybe that drove us to become more heart-centered, more spiritually minded, more flexible. All of that was a reaction to the controlling part of us. And now that may have done some good for us. We may have developed some very wonderful qualities of being flexible, being open, being spontaneous, being creative. But if you've denied the controller, what you will experience in your own life is, number one, people coming into your life trying to control you. And number two, situations that you feel like are controlling you. And then finally, you will find that in your life, you have a lack of positive structure. Maybe you can't balance your checkbook. Maybe you're always late, or you can't get things done because you don't have a good schedule. You basically are lacking really strong, focused structure usually because you've rejected it, because you've rejected that part of you called the controller, which has a negative charge to it. So when you go back and begin to speak to that part of you, that controlling part of you, and begin to understand him or her and ask them where they came from, what their blessing is, what their lesson is for you, and what they need to take their rightful and constructive place in your life again, that part of you will start to guide you and direct you and speak to you until it becomes a part of your life again. And you'll find that a lot of the things you're struggling with in that area will start to resolve themselves as you embrace this part of you that you've been spending a lifetime trying to deny or fix or get rid of or heal. That includes the angry part of you. For a lot of us, the angry part of us that we've been trying to repress and not be an angry person and trying to make ourselves happier and more peaceful and more loving. We also will find that we probably feel powerless a lot of the time in our life because our anger, the angry part of us, is actually our repressed power.
So thank you, Derek. That was really powerful. Again, a lot of good information in there, and I'm going to re-listen, and I'm sure our audience will too. And like you said, at the end of this interview, you're going to gift our audience with a really powerful process. I actually took a look at it last night and it went through it, and yes, it was pretty insightful. So thank you for that. But I want to ask you specifically. Our audience have been faced with some really severe trauma, and I know trauma is trauma. And so I want to ask you: is it the human condition to want to blame or point, want someone else to justify what happened to me, in order for us to move forward? Because so many of these people have been hurt by even severely by someone that they trusted, that they loved. So how can they make peace with this part of themselves that they feel like it was out of their control? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, the deeper answer to that question, I'll start with the deepest part of it. Well, I'll start with the simplest part of it first. The simplest, most practical side of it first is we need to begin to practice exercising our muscle of compassion. And having compassion for ourselves, having real self-love and compassion, and beginning to embrace those parts of us that are scared, that are angry, that are judgmental, that are wanting to lash out, that want to attack, that want to get back at people, or that want to withdraw and shrink and hide. Just loving those parts of us. So not immediately trying to change them, or judge them or make them wrong. None of it is wrong. It's all just energy and it's all information. So loving those parts of ourselves, having compassion, giving them space to breathe, space to have a voice. A lot of times, depending on our path and our nature, if we've been traumatized, victimized, we have a lot of judgment about those parts of ourselves. And we, especially if we're on like a spiritual path or a heart-centered path, we think the part of us that's angry, that's enraged, that's judgmental, that's wanting to get revenge, vengeful, that we want to try to turn our vengeful self into a loving self, We want to turn our angry self into a happy self. We want to turn that frown upside down, and that's actually a way that we end up doing violence to ourselves all over again. So instead, we want to embrace those parts of ourselves. They have legitimate reasons for having their voice and having what they're feeling. And we don't try to change them. We first give them space and love them and listen to them. Now, and as you do that and you really listen and ask, what do they need from you? What do they need from you to take their rightful constructive place in your life again? Those parts of you will start to speak. And so that's the first most compassionate step. The second thing, which is a little bit more down the rabbit hole, is understanding that there really are no mistakes in life. That even behind what appears to be chaos, there is order. There is a pattern. There's something bigger and better trying to emerge. And we haven't really talked about the law of emergence, which is what I'm most known for, but there's always a bigger, better, purer, truer pattern of life trying to emerge through us. Because in truth, there's really only one life and one divine design that's unfolding and emerging everywhere. And at a deeper level, on a soul level, we designed this incarnation. We designed this lifetime for our own growth and evolution. It's much the way an author would design a play. And in a play, they would put a cast of characters. They'd have enemies and allies and good guys and bad guys and heroes and heroines and obstacles and trials and all of that. And all of it is designed for the growth and the evolution of the main character, to go from being merely a protagonist to the heroine of the story. And none of it is there to destroy the character or to put them down. It's all designed to pull out of them more of their capacities, more of their giftedness, more of their talents and abilities. And in the same way, we design this divine drama called our human experience and cast through soul contracts individuals that will play certain parts so that we can discover deeper latent potentials within us. So we might experience great betrayal, or we might experience a trauma that makes us believe life isn't safe. I'm not safe. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I don't matter. And that we call a core wound. But it's actually a core initiation that is calling for us now to go on a quest, to ask a question of life and of ourself. Who am I really? What's really true? So that we can ultimately discover, spiritually speaking, that I live in a friendly universe, that I'm totally supported, I'm completely loved, and that I'm profoundly worthy and valuable. And we are able to then discover that independent of circumstances and really integrate and embody a realization of our inherent worth and value, and an inherent realization that life is fundamentally safe, friendly, and for me. And so that's giving us an indication of what our true quest is in this particular lifetime, one of the core quests or questions. And so when we do that, then we begin to see that, all those challenges and crises were designed there to make us stronger. Now, it's also not only is your core wound, your core initiation, it's your deeper soul's work, but it's also very much a part of your life's work, meaning those core traumas and challenges and crises you've gone through and are growing through are designing you and preparing you to be an instrument of some giftedness in the world as a teacher, a coach, a healer, a creator, a parent, a friend. In some way, that's preparing you to be able to deliver a message, to deliver a quality, to be an example of some higher possibility. Again, whether it's in your family or in your business. So all of it's designed to not only grow and evolve your own soul, but to make you an instrument of some gift that you're here to give to the world. It's all part of a singular fabric, part of a singular destiny. And when you understand that, you see that your whole life has been conspiring for you, that everything and everyone has actually been helping you, conspiring for you, for your awakening, for your evolution, for your freedom, for your deepest fulfillment, and also so that you could be a part of a bigger mission and purpose on the planet.
That's beautiful, Derek. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you pulling in that, that you talk about the law of emergence. And I'm really hoping our audience will go to your website and listen to many of your podcasts where you talk and you go deeply into that. But, to talk about almost the gift of trauma, almost the gift of the pain,
Yeah.
And we can't push it over or continue to repress it. Is in befriending it and accepting it and getting curious about it. And I speak a lot about that with my clients. Is like, your fear is coming here to tell you something. There's something you have been avoiding about yourself. Yes, in the beginning it feels too big, but probably because that wounded self you haven't accepted is teeny tiny inside of you, having really, really big feelings.
Yes.
So, and like you said, it's not like those shadow parts of us go away completely, at least in my experience. But now I feel like I can see them a mile away. I can see them as they're arriving, and I'm better equipped handling it or seeing. And also I know myself. I know my patterns. I know when I'm out of my comfort zone. Some old friends come to town to visit.
Yes.
So I get to handle it. So, but I really appreciate how you speak to everything really being perfect, and it's unfolding just the way it should. And I can, from my experience, I can look back at my horrific childhood and say, I'm really grateful for all of it.
Yes.
Really am. And yes. People may not believe it, but in my heart of hearts, it's made me who I am, and the capacity to hold the space for others in a way that I wouldn't have.
Correct. Exactly. It's developing in you the heart of God, which is an unconditional, all conditional loving. Now, that doesn't mean you condone. I want to be clear. It doesn't mean, if somebody's, attacked you, abused you, or is doing those kinds of things in the world, you're not condoning those behaviors. And in fact, if they've done something that's violent or illegal, them going to jail is not unspiritual. But, while you might close the bars on their cell, you don't close your heart. You don't close your heart to them or to yourself. But if they're a violence to themselves or to others, then they have to be in a place where they can't do harm to themselves or others. But at the same time, then the process needs to be forgiveness and love and a deeper seeing into their true nature and their true innocence. Because everyone who acts out and perpetrates is also a victim. And violence is the voice of the inarticulate. And it's like the story of the school of fish that are going along, and they're traveling along. All of a sudden, this one fish starts acting crazy and bumping into each other and hitting other fish and cutting in front of other fish and just being really, and they're trying to calm him down and they're trying to get him to act normal, and he just won't. And eventually they just say, forget this guy, and they all leave him, only to reveal that he's been caught on a hook. And so everybody that acts out, they've been hooked. They've been caught by some false concept or belief about life, about themselves, a sense of separation, fear, doubt, worry. They've been traumatized or abused in some way, and they're asleep to who they really are, and they're acting out some universal misconception of life. So they're hooked. And if we then just, hate them and lock them out of our heart and lock them away, then the cycle of violence, the cycle of perpetration, the cycle of trauma continues. But not only that, we lose our opportunity that they showed up for, which is to develop the heart of God, to develop a soul of such compassion. And understand that from the emergence model, whatever's missing is what we're not giving, because everything is within us. So if we are withholding our love, compassion, and forgiveness from someone else, we're actually blocking our own capacity to express more love into our own life experience. So it's like the analogy of, if you hate somebody, it's like drinking poison and thinking it's going to hurt them. You're blocking, nothing can come into your life unless it comes out of you. So if you want to say, on one hand, I want more love in my life, I want more compassion, more peace, but you're blaming, judging, withholding, resentful, unforgiving, all of thinking that somehow that's righteous or protective. Those are actually all the areas you're blocking the love and the peace and the joy from coming out of you. And those are all the areas that you're blocking your demonstration of the life you want. So it's the ultimate divine selfishness to forgive everyone of everything. It's the ultimate divine selfishness to love everyone unconditionally, to want the very best for everyone, to just send nothing but love and peace and good thoughts and feelings to everyone unconditionally, all conditionally, because all of that energy that you're giving is what gets to show up in your life. And all of those places where you're withholding is where you block your life, your demonstration. That's key to understand. So in this, all the great masters taught this, you are judged as you judge. Whatever you withhold is withheld from you. If you're at your altar praying, but you still have resentment for your brother, first go and forgive them, then come back to your altar. Forgive your enemy 70 times 7. Your enemy is within your own household. These are the teachings of Jesus and really all the masters. So, and this isn't a touchy-feely being a good person. This is principle. Mm-hmm. And so from the most basic level, if you want to have a better, more abundant, more loving, more joyful, more peaceful life, mind, body, relationships, it behooves you to make it a priority to forgive yourself and everyone completely, every day, and to love unconditionally yourself and everyone every day, so that you can be an open channel for that life to flow through you and out of you and ultimately to you. And again, that does not mean that you lose your discernment. That doesn't mean you lose the ability to discern, appropriate versus inappropriate behavior. You don't lose that. Jesus says, be as gentle as a dove, but as wise as a serpent. So you don't lose your ability to be discerning. And you also can love somebody, but not hang out with them. So it doesn't mean you got to be friends with everybody. You can recognize their behavior is not appropriate. It's not congruent with my soul and the life I want to live. I'm going to love them, forgive them, absolutely want the best for them, but they're not going to be in my life. It's like the old joke of the married couple, and the woman's doing all this work on herself, and and she's growing, and the man's not doing any work on himself, and he eventually she's kind of trying to get him to come in, and he won't, and eventually he's like, what are you saying? If I don't work on myself, if I don't do this work and grow, you're not going to love me? And she says, of course not, darling. I'll always love you. I'll miss you, but I'll love you. Mm-hmm. So in other words, she's not going to be hanging around for long, but she's not going to stop loving. Yes. So it's important that people understand the distinction, especially if you're still right now in the throes of feeling angry or traumatized. And it can sometimes feel like such an affront to be loving, to be forgiving, and that somehow you're making their behavior right. I'm not saying that. Yep. Although at the deeper level, once you've dealt with that, we are saying that everything is ultimately conspiring for your good, for your awakening, for your strengthening. And that's where we ultimately want you to go, because that's the ultimate place of empowerment. Even if it doesn't feel good, if you got to choose everything in your life working for you and supporting you and ultimately turning out to be a blessing and a benefit, or a lot of things in your life being destructive and damaging, which would you choose? And I think it's pretty obvious you would choose the former. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel good. It's not easy. But if you want to be truly free and truly empowered, there is only one path, and that is to decide that everything is conspiring for your good, and then begin to do this deeper work to come into alignment with that.
Wonderful. Thank you for making that distinction. It's an important one, and I understand it, and I'm glad the audience got to hear it from you. Again, so much in there. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
My heart sings right now. So thank you. again, but we're almost out of time. And I'm like I said, we're going to put a link to your website underneath this video so people can come and listen to. There's so much good stuff on both your podcast, on your website that, again, speak to your heart. But you have a free gift to our audience, and I want to make sure you tell us a little bit about that before we end our call.
Yeah, it's the shadow process. And they can go to DerekRydall.com/shadow process, I believe is the right link.
Yes.
And that's DerekRydall.com/shadow process, all one word. And what I do is I walk you through the process of embracing and working with your shadows. And again, the shadow is, if you find yourself really afraid to acknowledge or for people to see you a certain way, that's a shadow. So for example, you find yourself working all the time so hard, never wanting to give yourself a break. And if I asked you, what are you afraid is going to happen? I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Failure is a shadow. Or I'm afraid, I'm going to become lazy. Lazy is a shadow. Or, if you're in a relationship and you're always helping others, but you feel burnt out, overwhelmed, and I say, well, you need to tell them no and take care of yourself. And you're like, oh my God, they'll think I'm selfish. Selfish is a shadow. And so it's embracing these parts of you that you're afraid of becoming, that you're afraid you will become if you don't keep doing the compulsive behaviors you're doing. And as you go and work with these, as you embrace the selfish shadow, as I walk you through that process, you don't become selfish in a destructive way. You actually embody the energy to take better and better care of yourself. And then because the world treats you the way you train it to, based on how you treat yourself, as you treat yourself better, as you take better care of yourself, the people and the relationships and the situations will start to take better care of you. And so I walk you through a process of how to embrace and integrate and embody the shadows. And it's a very, very powerful process that becomes just a part of your way of life, so that you're no longer fighting these parts of you. Because if you're fighting, resisting, trying to fix, change, get rid of, then you're actually giving them more energy. You're creating more separation, and you will draw more and more of the very thing you don't want into your life. So this process helps you to get off that hamster wheel and start to really heal and integrate these parts of you you've been running from, hiding from, trying to fix, trying to cover over. And really coming into an awareness that you're okay, that you're enough, that there's nothing wrong with you, you're not broken, you're not damaged, that you're a perfect, whole, and complete expression of life, even with all of these parts of you. And then these parts of you also become new gifts, talents, and abilities as they start to emerge. So you can go get that. Also, if you get my book, Emergence, which has been a bestseller, you can go to the website www.getemergencebook.com and get additional programs and support to really apply these principles in a much deeper and broader way in your life.
Beautiful. Thank you. And like I told you before we started our call, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful that you're in the world making a difference, bringing this message out there, because it's really, really important. And like I said, it doesn't go in here. It really went to my heart. And I did that shadow process last night. And I was like, that's interesting. So I definitely learned something new, and I'm doing it again. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, thank you.
I want to say one last thing, Svava,
yes,
about the shadow. Understand the shadow process isn't about going in there and fixing yourself. It's about building a relationship with these parts of you that have become disowned. So just know that you may not get all the answers the first time you do it, or the second or the third. It's not about that. Think of it more like relationships in your life that have become estranged and you're starting to reconnect again. And if you can think of it like that, that can take time. That takes you sitting down with them and spending time with them and listening to them and all of that. So be patient and kind with these parts of you. If it doesn't unveil itself or doesn't seem to solve itself right away, it's a relationship. And when it comes to relationships, it's not about being efficient, it's about being effective. And effectiveness can take time. Now, you might have a dramatic breakthrough, and that's wonderful. But just know it's about building a new relationship with these parts of you. And it's an ongoing journey of falling more and more in love with these parts of you. And if you think of it in that context, then whatever you get out of that encounter with them is a good encounter. It's another moment you got to spend with a part of you where you're being a little more loving, a little more kind, a little more understanding, and progressively you begin to open. Those parts of you will begin to open.
Brilliant. Perfect way to end today, Derek. Well, thank you again so much for your work in this message, and our audience will have easy access to you underneath this video. And to our audience, thank you again for watching. You heard it from Derek. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. We are here. We have all the things that we need to heal and restore. So I'm so excited that you joined us for this interview today. And so be on the lookout for our audience for tomorrow for another email with 2 amazing more interviews. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care, everyone.